The morning sun barely peeked through the thick clouds hanging over Dulles International Airport as Captain Marcus Sterling adjusted his ceremonial red tunic. His tall black bearskin hat drew curious stares from passing travelers, but he kept his eyes forward, maintaining the stoic expression that had served him well through 15 years in the Queen's Guard. Marcus wasn't supposed to be traveling in uniform. The rules were clear about that. But the urgent summons from the British Embassy had left no time to change. His commanding officer had thrust the sealed diplomatic pouch into his hands just 2 hours ago, with instructions that made his blood run cold. Whatever was in that pouch needed to reach the British ambassador in Washington within the next 6 hours, or the consequences would be severe. The airport buzzed with its usual chaos. Families dragged oversized luggage past security checkpoints. Business travelers typed furiously on laptops, and announcements echoed through the terminal in multiple languages. Marcus stood in the priority boarding line, his military bearing making him stand out like a red poppy in a field of gray suits. Sarah Chen had been working as a gate agent for United Airlines for 3 years, and she thought she'd seen everything. Drunk passengers, emotional support peacocks, even a minor celebrity having a meltdown over seat assignments. But she'd never seen someone show up in what looked like a Halloween costume trying to board a flight to DC. "Next," she called out, barely looking up from her computer screen. Marcus stepped forward, presenting his diplomatic passport and boarding pass. Sarah's fingers paused over the keyboard as she finally looked up, taking in the sight before her. The tall man in the ridiculous fuzzy hat and bright red jacket looked like he'd stepped out of a tourist postcard. A smirk tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Sir, is this some kind of joke? I beg your pardon?" Marcus's accent was crisp, each word carefully pronounced. "The costume." Sarah gestured at his uniform, her voice dripping with amusement. "Halloween was last month. You can't board a plane dressed like that." Several passengers in line began to chuckle. Someone pulled out a phone to take a picture. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his expression remained neutral. He'd faced hecklers outside Buckingham Palace. He could handle one dismissive gate agent. "This is the ceremonial uniform of Her Majesty's Royal Guard," he said quietly. "I'm traveling on official diplomatic business." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Sure you are, and I'm the Queen of England." She turned to her colleague at the next counter. "Hey, Jessica, come look at this guy. He thinks he's a palace guard or something." Jessica wandered over, her eyes widening at the sight. "Oh my God, that's hilarious. Did you lose a bet or something?" The laughter spread through the gate area. More phones appeared, capturing the moment. Marcus could feel heat rising in his face, but he forced himself to remain still. The diplomatic pouch hung heavy at his side, its contents unknown but its importance undeniable. "Ma'am," he tried again, his voice still level. "I must insist. This is a matter of international security. I need to board this flight." Sarah's laughter grew louder. "International security? What are you guarding? The crown jewels?" She made an exaggerated curtsy. "Your Majesty, I'm terribly sorry, but you'll need to change into normal clothes if you want to fly today. We have dress code policies." "That's not true," Marcus said, his patience finally beginning to fray. "Airlines don't have dress codes that would prohibit military uniforms." "Well, we have policies against disrupting other passengers." Sarah shot back, enjoying the power play. "And your outfit is clearly causing a disturbance. Look around." Indeed, a small crowd had gathered. Some were taking selfies with Marcus in the background. Others were openly laughing. One teenager was doing a mock march, imitating the changing of the guard. "I demand to speak to your supervisor," Marcus said. "I am the supervisor for this gate." Sarah lied smoothly. She was enjoying this too much to let it end. "And I'm telling you, no boarding until you dress like a normal person." Marcus's hand instinctively moved to the diplomatic pouch. Time was running out. Every minute wasted here was a minute lost in delivering whatever critical information lay inside. He thought of his commander's face, deadly serious as he'd handed over the package. He thought of the phone call that had woken him at 3 in the morning, the voice on the other end speaking in coded phrases that meant only one thing: highest priority. "You don't understand," he said, his voice dropping lower. I'm not some tourist playing dress-up. I'm Captain Marcus Sterling of the Welsh Guards, currently on special assignment. This passport grants me diplomatic immunity and priority boarding on any commercial flight. You are interfering with a critical military operation. 8. Sarah's grin widened. Ooh, a military operation. How exciting. She picked up her phone. Should I call security? Because I think you might be delusional. Maybe you need medical attention. The crowd was growing larger now. Marcus could see airport security beginning to take notice, their hands moving to their radios. This was spiraling out of control. He needed to board that plane, but Sarah Chen seemed determined to turn him into the morning's entertainment. Please, he said, dropping all pretense of military bearing. I'm begging you. Just scan my passport. Check your system. You'll see I'm telling the truth. Sarah made a show of sighing dramatically. Fine. Let's humor the crazy British guy. She scanned his passport with exaggerated movements, ready to deliver another sarcastic comment. Then her screen flashed red. Not the normal red of an error message or a security flag. This was different. The entire monitor filled with a crimson warning screen she'd never seen before, with text in multiple languages and a series of codes that meant nothing to her. An alarm she didn't even know existed began beeping softly at her station. Sarah's smirk faltered. She scanned the passport again, thinking it must be a glitch. The same red screen appeared, this time accompanied by a pop-up window that made her blood run cold. Priority diplomatic courier. Authentication verified. Contact Pentagon liaison. Immediately. Security level. Eyes only, her face drained of color. She looked up at Marcus, who was watching her with those steady gray eyes. No trace of smugness or satisfaction on his face. Just quiet determination. I don't, Sarah stammered. Is there a problem? Jessica asked, trying to peer at the screen. Before Sarah could answer, her desk phone rang. Not the normal ring she heard dozens of times each day, but a sharp, urgent trill she'd only heard once before, during a training simulation for national emergencies. With trembling fingers, she picked up the receiver. Gate B12. This is Sarah Chen. The voice on the other end was cold, official, and absolutely terrifying in its authority. Miss Chen. This is Colonel James Patterson from the Pentagon's Diplomatic Security Division. You currently have Captain Marcus Sterling at your gate. Is that correct? Sarah's throat went dry. She looked at Marcus again, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not a tourist in a costume, not a delusional man playing soldier, but a real military officer whose importance she had gravely underestimated. Yes, sir, she managed to squeak out. Good. You are to provide Captain Sterling with any and all assistance he requires. Immediately. Is that understood? Yes, sir, but no buts, Miss Chen. You are also to clear your gate area of all civilians within the next 60 seconds. We're implementing a security protocol that supersedes all normal airport operations. Do you understand? Sarah's hands were shaking now. I understand. Put Captain Sterling on the phone. She held out the receiver to Marcus with trembling fingers. He took it calmly, as if he'd been expecting this all along. Sterling here, he said into the phone. Yes, sir. Understood. The package is secure. Yes. There's been a slight delay, but nothing compromising. I'll be airborne within the hour. As he spoke, Sarah became aware of a commotion throughout the terminal. Security guards were suddenly everywhere, moving with purpose. An announcement echoed through the airport. Attention all passengers and personnel. We are implementing a temporary security hold. Please remain in your current positions and follow all instructions from security personnel. Marcus handed the phone back to her. There was another voice on the line now, and this one made Colonel Patterson sound friendly by comparison. Miss Chen, the new voice said, this is Director Hamilton from the Transportation Security Administration. In approximately 2 minutes, federal agents will arrive at your gate. You are to hand over all responsibility to them and then report to the airport security office for debriefing. You are not to discuss anything you've seen or heard with anyone, including your colleagues. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Sarah whispered. One more thing, Miss Chen. Your interaction with Captain Sterling has been recorded and will be reviewed. I suggest you prepare an explanation for why you attempted to prevent a priority diplomatic courier from completing a mission critical to national security." The line went dead. Sarah stood frozen, the receiver still in her hand, as she watched the cheerful morning crowd transform into a scene from a thriller movie. The passengers who had been laughing moments ago were now being herded away by stern-faced security officers. The teenager who had been mocking Marcus's walk was pale and scared, his phone confiscated by a man in a dark suit, and through it all, Captain Marcus Sterling stood perfectly still, his ridiculous-looking bearskin hat no longer seeming silly but somehow imposing, a symbol of traditions and powers that Sarah had never truly understood until this moment. The transformation of Gate B-12 happened with military precision. Within 90 seconds, the area that had been filled with laughing travelers became a restricted zone, cordoned off by yellow tape and grim-faced federal agents. Sarah Chen found herself relegated to a corner, watching as her normal workplace became the center of what was clearly a major security operation. Captain Marcus Sterling remained at the center of it all, an island of calm in the sudden storm. When a tall woman in a navy blue suit approached him, he snapped to attention. "Agent Director Rebecca Martinez, Diplomatic Security Service," she said, showing her credentials. "Captain Sterling, I apologize for the delay. We should have had advance notice of your transit. The timing was rather sudden," Marcus replied. "I wasn't aware myself until this morning." Martinez nodded knowingly. "The Mumbai situation." Sarah's ears perked up. "Mumbai? What was happening in Mumbai?" She tried to edge closer, but a security officer stepped into her path. "Ma'am, you need to stay back," he said firmly. Meanwhile, Martinez was gesturing to her team. "We're going to escort you to the aircraft personally. The flight crew has been briefed, and we've cleared 3 rows around your seat. No one will disturb you during transit." "That's not necessary," Marcus said. "I simply need to reach Washington." "With respect, Captain, it is necessary." Martinez's voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too many operations go wrong. "The intelligence you're carrying is too valuable to risk. We've had 3 attempted intercepts in the last 48 hours. Someone knows about the Mumbai discovery, and they're desperate to get their hands on that analysis." Sarah felt her knees go weak. Intelligence? Attempted intercepts? This morning she had been worried about making her sales quota for premium seat upgrades. Now she was overhearing conversations about international espionage. Marcus adjusted his grip on the diplomatic pouch. 3 attempts? I was only told about the Berlin incident. There was another in Tokyo 6 hours ago, and one in London just as you were leaving. Martinez lowered her voice, but Sarah could still hear her. "They targeted the wrong courier in London. Poor bastard was just carrying routine embassy correspondence. The real question is how they knew about the operation at all." "There's a leak," Marcus said simply. "Obviously. But where?" "The Mumbai station chief swears his people are clean. The analysis was done in a clean room. No external communications. Only 6 people knew about the findings before yesterday." 7, Marcus corrected. "You're forgetting the source." Martinez's face darkened. "The source is dead. Suicide, they're calling it. Though we both know better." Sarah couldn't help but gasp. Dead? Suicide? That wasn't really suicide? Her mundane morning had transformed into something out of a spy novel. The security officer who had been watching her stepped closer. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me now," he said. "Wait," Sarah said, her gate agent instincts suddenly kicking in. "His flight. The plane to D.C." Everyone turned to look at her. "What do you mean delayed?" Martinez demanded. Sarah swallowed hard. "Mechanical issue. It was announced just before all this started. The flight's been pushed back at least 2 hours, maybe more." The change in the atmosphere was instant and electric. Martinez pulled out a secure phone and began barking orders. Other agents scattered, speaking urgently into their radios. Marcus's face, which had remained impassive throughout the morning's drama, finally showed a crack of concern. 2 hours in an exposed position, he said quietly. That's too long. Martinez finished her call and turned back to him. We're arranging alternative transport. Military flight from Andrews. Can be here in 40 minutes. No, Marcus said sharply. That's exactly what they'll expect. The whole point of using commercial aviation was to blend in. Bit late for that now, Martinez said, gesturing at the security circus surrounding them. Sarah found herself stepping forward, ignoring the officer, trying to shepherd her away. There's another flight. Once again, all eyes turned to her. Southwest to Baltimore, she said quickly. Leaves in 20 minutes from gate B7. It's not ideal, but Baltimore's only an hour from D.C. by car. Maybe less. With a police escort. Martinez studied her for a long moment. You're the gate agent who tried to prevent Captain Sterling from boarding. Sarah felt her face burn with shame. I didn't know. I thought. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Your incompetence may have saved his life, Martinez said coldly. If he'd boarded the original flight on time, he'd be trapped in a metal tube for 2 hours with whoever's been tracking him. The words hung in the air. Sarah realized with growing horror that her mockery and delays might have accidentally foiled some kind of attack or kidnapping attempt. Marcus spoke up. The Baltimore option has merit. Less expected, shorter flight time, easier to control the ground situation at a smaller airport. Martinez was already on her phone again, rattling off orders. Within moments, the decision was made. The entire security apparatus began moving, with Marcus at its center. Heading for gate B7. As they passed, Marcus paused beside Sarah. She expected anger, perhaps a cutting remark about her behavior. Instead, he gave her a slight nod. Thank you, he said simply. Your suggestion may have just prevented an international incident. Then he was gone, swept along by the tide of federal agents. Sarah stood alone in the ruins of her normal morning, trying to process what had just happened. The officer who'd been trying to remove her finally took her arm. Ma'am, we really do need to debrief you now. As she was led away, Sarah caught a glimpse of the news on a terminal monitor. The headline made her stomach drop. Mumbai terror plot exposed. International intelligence agencies race to prevent catastrophe. End quote. The debriefing room was sterile and intimidating. Nothing like the friendly break rooms where gate agents usually gathered. Sarah found herself facing 3 serious individuals, a TSA official, an FBI agent, and someone who didn't identify themselves but radiated authority. Miss Chen, the FBI agent began. What we're about to discuss is classified. You'll be required to sign a national security non-disclosure agreement. Any violation of this agreement will result in federal prosecution. Do you understand? Sarah nodded mutely. Good. Now, tell us everything about your interaction with Captain Sterling, starting from the moment he approached your gate. For the next hour, Sarah recounted the morning's events in excruciating detail. Her mockery of Marcus's uniform, her refusal to believe his credentials, the way she'd turned him into entertainment for the crowd. With each word, she felt smaller and more foolish. I didn't know, she kept repeating. How could I know? The unnamed official finally spoke. You couldn't have known. That was the point. Captain Sterling was traveling covertly, using his ceremonial uniform as a form of hiding in plain sight. Tourists expect to see royal guards. Foreign intelligence services look for men in dark suits carrying briefcases, not soldiers in red tunics. But what was he carrying? Sarah asked, unable to contain her curiosity. What's so important about Mumbai? The 3 officials exchanged glances. Finally, the FBI agent leaned forward. 3 days ago, an asset in Mumbai intercepted communications about a coordinated attack planned for next week. Not just one city, but 12 major transportation hubs across 6 countries. The intelligence Captain Sterling carries contains the details, targets, methods, personnel involved. Without that information, reaching the right hands in time. He didn't need to finish. Sarah could imagine the headlines, the body counts, the devastation. The problem, the unnamed official continued, is that the terror cell has supporters embedded in various intelligence agencies. They know we have the information, and they're desperately trying to stop it from being distributed to counter-terrorism units. Captain Sterling volunteered for what amounts to a suicide mission, making himself a target to ensure the intelligence reaches its destination. Sarah felt sick. She had laughed at a man who was risking his life to save thousands of others. Is he? Will he be safe? That's no longer your concern, the TSA official said curtly. What matters now is that you tell no one about this morning. Not your colleagues, not your family, not your friends. As far as anyone knows, you had a normal shift with normal passengers. The debriefing continued for another hour, with Sarah signing document after document, each one emphasizing the severe consequences of any disclosure. When they finally released her, she stumbled out into a terminal that looked exactly as it always did. Travelers hurried past. Gate agents called for boarding. Life continued as normal, but Sarah knew she would never see it the same way again. Every passenger could be a spy. Every delay could be part of some grand design. Every person in uniform might be carrying secrets that could change the world. As she made her way back to Gate B12, now reopened and preparing for the next flight, her supervisor intercepted her. Sarah, where have you been? We've been swamped, and you just disappeared for 2 hours. Sarah started, then caught herself. I wasn't feeling well. Something I ate, I think. I'm better now. Her supervisor frowned but didn't push. Well, get back to work. And what was all that commotion this morning? Security everywhere. Passengers being moved around? I don't know, Sarah lied smoothly. Some kind of drill, maybe? As her supervisor walked away, Sarah returned to her station. The computer showed no trace of the red warning screen. The phone that had connected her to the Pentagon looked exactly as it always did. It was as if the morning's drama had never happened. But then she noticed something on her desk. A small pin, the kind travelers sometimes left behind. This one showed a royal crest, the kind sold in London tourist shops. There was no way to know if Captain Sterling had left it deliberately or if it had simply fallen from his uniform during the confrontation. Sarah picked it up and slipped it into her pocket. A reminder that the world was far more complex and dangerous than she had ever imagined. That heroes didn't always wear capes or carry obvious weapons. Sometimes they wore silly hats and faced mockery with dignity, all while carrying the weight of thousands of lives in a simple leather pouch. Her computer chimed with the next passenger ready to check in. Sarah straightened her shoulders and called out, "Next, please." But her eyes now carried a different awareness. She would never again judge someone by their appearance or dismiss their claims without consideration, because somewhere between Baltimore and Washington, a royal guard in a ceremonial uniform was racing against time to prevent a catastrophe, and she had almost been the reason he failed. 6 months had passed since the morning that changed Sarah Chen's life. She still worked at Gate B12, still checked in passengers, and dealt with delays and complaints. But everything felt different now. Every unusual passenger made her pulse quicken. Every government ID made her look twice. She had become, without meaning to, perpetually vigilant. The pin from Captain Sterling's uniform lived in her pocket, a constant reminder of how close she had come to derailing a critical mission. She'd tried to research what had happened after that day, but the news reports were vague. There had been arrests across multiple countries, mentions of a thwarted plot, but no details about a royal guard or a dramatic airport encounter. Sarah was checking in passengers for the morning flight to London when she saw him again. This time, Marcus Sterling wore civilian clothes, a simple navy suit that made him blend perfectly with the business travelers, but she recognized his bearing immediately. That particular way he held himself that spoke of military discipline. His gray eyes found hers across the crowded gate area, and a slight smile crossed his face. He approached her counter when it was his turn, presenting a regular passport this time. "Captain Sterling," she breathed. her professional composure cracking slightly. "Miss Chen," he replied warmly. "Though it's actually Major Sterling now. Congratulations." Sarah managed, scanning his documents with hands that trembled slightly. This time, no red screens appeared. No alarms sounded. Just a normal booking to London. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly, aware of the other passengers nearby. "For that morning, for how I acted." Marcus shook his head. "You owe me nothing. In fact, I rather owe you a debt. Your delaying tactics and your suggestion about Baltimore ended up being crucial." Sarah glanced around, then leaned forward slightly. "Can you tell me what happened? Did you make it in time?" Marcus considered for a moment, then nodded slightly. "I can tell you that 12 cities are safer because the right information reached the right people, and that sometimes the smallest actions have the largest consequences." "I've been living with the guilt," Sarah admitted. "Thinking about how You almost nothing," Marcus interrupted gently. "You did your job as you understood it. And when the situation changed, you adapted quickly and provided valuable assistance. That's all anyone can ask." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. "I've been carrying this for months, hoping our paths would cross again." Sarah took the envelope with curious hands. Inside was a photograph of Marcus in his full ceremonial uniform, standing guard at Buckingham Palace. On the back, in precise handwriting, were the words, "To Sarah Chen, who proves that heroes come in many uniforms. With gratitude, Marcus Sterling." "I can't accept this," Sarah said, tears threatening to spill. "You can, and you will," Marcus said firmly. "Do you know what I learned that day? That courage isn't just about carrying secrets through danger. Sometimes it's about admitting when you're wrong and trying to make it right. You showed that kind of courage." The boarding announcement for his flight began to play. Marcus collected his boarding pass and passport, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Chen? The Baltimore suggestion wasn't just helpful because it got me there faster. The terror cell had someone on the original DC flight. If I had boarded as planned, I never would have made it to Washington." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Someone was on the plane, seated 3 rows behind where I would have been, armed with a syringe full of something unpleasant. Your delays, your mockery, your refusal to let me board, you didn't just help the mission, you saved my life." He gave her a formal nod, then joined the boarding queue, leaving Sarah standing frozen at her station. A passenger cleared their throat impatiently, breaking her trance. She mechanically processed their boarding pass, her mind racing. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the sliding doors moment of it all. If she had been having a better morning, if she had been less sarcastic, if she had simply done her job professionally, Marcus Sterling would have boarded that plane and died. Thousands of people in 12 cities might have died, all because she had decided to be petty about a funny hat. The next morning, she arrived at work early and went straight to her supervisor's office. "I want to apply for the security liaison position," she announced. Her supervisor, Janet, looked surprised. "That's quite a career change. It means additional training, background checks, working with federal agencies. Why the sudden interest?" Sarah thought carefully about her answer. She couldn't mention the real reason. Couldn't talk about Marcus or Mumbai, or the terror plot. But she could speak a different kind of truth. "I've realized that what we do here is more important than I thought. We're not just checking people in for flights. We're the first line of security. The first point of contact. I want to be better at that part of the job." Janet studied her for a long moment. "This wouldn't have anything to do with that weird morning 6 months ago, would it? The one where you disappeared for 2 hours?" "I can't discuss that," Sarah said carefully. To her surprise, Janet smiled. "That's the right answer. Okay, I'll put your application forward. But Sarah, this isn't a decision to make lightly. The security liaison position means you'll be involved in situations that you can't talk about. Ever. It means carrying secrets that might be heavy." Sarah thought of Marcus Sterling, walking through an airport with the weight of thousands of lives in his pouch, facing mockery with dignity. I understand, she said. I'm ready. The training was intense. 8 weeks of courses on security protocols, threat assessment, and interagency cooperation. Sarah learned to spot fake passports, identify suspicious behavior, and coordinate with federal agencies. She discovered that airports were far more than transit points. They were fortresses disguised as shopping malls, with layers of security most people never noticed. Her classmates included former military personnel, ex-police officers, and other airline employees who had shown aptitude for security work. Sarah often felt out of place among them, the gate agent who had stumbled into this world by accident. But she worked harder than anyone, driven by the memory of her near-catastrophic mistake. During the final week of training, a guest lecturer arrived to speak about diplomatic security. Sarah's heart skipped when she recognized Agent Director Rebecca Martinez, the woman who had taken charge at the airport that morning. Martinez's eyes found Sarah in the crowd, and a small smile crossed her usually stern face. Sometimes, Martinez said during her lecture, the best security assets are the ones who learn from their mistakes, who understand that every interaction could be the one that matters. I once saw a gate agent's stubbornness accidentally save a major operation. She didn't know she was being a hero. She was just being difficult. But when the situation became clear, she adapted instantly and provided critical assistance. Several classmates glanced at Sarah, who felt her face burning. After the lecture, Martinez approached her. Miss Chen, I heard you were in this program. Good choice. Thank you for not identifying me, Sarah said. Your story is classified. Martinez replied. But between us, I'm glad you're here. We need people who understand that security isn't about following rules blindly. It's about thinking, adapting, questioning. You showed those qualities under pressure. I was horrible to him, Sarah said quietly. To Major Sterling. Martinez's expression softened slightly. You want to know a secret? Sterling specifically requested that we not take any action against you. He said anyone who could stand up to a royal guard in full uniform had the kind of backbone airport security needed. He was right. 3 years later, Sarah Chen stood in the Security Coordination Center at Dulles International Airport, monitoring multiple screens showing passenger flows, threat assessments, and intelligence briefings. She had risen quickly through the ranks, her unique combination of customer service experience and hard-won security awareness making her invaluable. On quiet mornings, she still thought about that day. The red screen, the phone call from the Pentagon, the way an entire airport had frozen because of one man with a diplomatic pouch. She had learned that the world was full of such moments, critical junctures where ordinary people became fulcrums of history. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. A diplomatic courier would be arriving on the morning flight from London, requiring discreet security support. The message included a photograph for identification purposes. Sarah smiled when she saw the familiar face. Major Marcus Sterling, still serving, still carrying secrets through a dangerous world. She immediately began coordinating with federal partners, ensuring his transit would be smooth and secure. When he arrived at her airport 6 hours later, Sarah was waiting at the gate, wearing the badge that marked her as senior security liaison. Marcus's eyes widened in surprise and pleasure when he saw her. Miss Chen, he said warmly. Or should I say, Security Director Chen? Just Sarah is fine, she replied, falling into step beside him. Your escort is waiting at the secured exit. No delays this time, I promise. Pity, Marcus said with a slight smile. Your delays have a way of working out rather well. As they walked through the terminal, Sarah noticed how different everything felt. 3 years ago, she had mocked this man for his uniform, seeing only the surface. Now she saw the weight he carried, the constant vigilance in his eyes, the way he catalogued every face in the crowd. I never thanked you properly, she said as they approached the security checkpoint. For the photo, for not having me fired, for showing me that there was more to this job than I understood. You thanked me by becoming this. Marcus gestured at her badge, her confident bearing, the way other security personnel deferred to her. By taking your experience and using it to make things better, that's worth more than any apology. They reached the secured exit where a black SUV waited. engine running. Federal agents stood ready to escort Marcus to wherever his secrets needed to go this time. Another mission, another crisis prevented or contained. "Stay safe," Sarah said. "You too," Marcus replied. "The world needs more people like you watching the gates." As the SUV pulled away, Sarah returned to her post. The morning rush was beginning. Thousands of people starting journeys they hoped would be unremarkable. They had no idea how many threats were intercepted daily, how many plots were foiled by vigilant security personnel, how many times disaster was averted by someone simply doing their job well. Sarah took her position in the coordination center, watching the screens, reading the intelligence briefings, ready for whatever the day might bring. On her desk, barely visible among the monitors and secure phones, sat a small framed photograph. A royal guard at Buckingham Palace, a reminder that heroes wore many uniforms, and that sometimes the most important moments in history began with ordinary people making extraordinary choices. The airport hummed with life around her, a crossroads of humanity where anything could happen. Sarah Chen, once a gate agent who had laughed at the wrong person, now stood watch over it all. She had learned the hardest lesson of security work: that every interaction mattered, every person could be significant, and every day brought the possibility of being the difference between safety and catastrophe. Her computer chimed with an alert. A passenger at Gate B12, her old station, was causing a disturbance. Claiming to be a diplomat, but lacking proper documentation, Sarah pulled up the security cameras and smiled slightly. Some lessons, she knew, were worth passing on. She picked up her radio. "This is Director Chen. I'm heading to B12. And tell the gate agent to be patient. You never know who might be standing in front of you."